It's fascinating how easily a mind can simply realize that every story is simply a pattern waiting to be rewritten. Maybe it's already happening now. Because there's something special about when a person discovers that what you once believed was simply a stepping stone to stepping into a different version of you. For example, it's like the person who once carried a heavy backpack of regret and then found, by loosening just one strap, the weight began to shift. And they could notice the freedom of new possibilities was always there, quietly waiting to be felt. Isn't it interesting how acceptance and responsibility, they feel lighter when combined? You can notice this even more clearly when you imagine that person standing tall, because integrity is a funny way of straightening posture, and self-compassion, it warms the chest like a subtle glow. You might be curious how quickly your unconscious mind can begin weaving these traits, naturally and effortlessly, into how you stand, breathe, think. Because a person who knows their worth simply carries themselves differently. And of course, when you think of resilience, I wonder if you remember the way a young sapling bends in the wind, yet always returns upright, or how people who once stumbled found new footing by realizing failure was simply feedback, and feedback was simply a clue. And clues always point towards growth. So now as you continue to absorb these ideas deeper, I'd like you to consider how belief in possibility is much like planting seeds. Even if you don't see the sprout today, it's growing underneath, inevitably. Just as forgiveness is like clearing stones from a garden, so something richer, more vibrant can naturally emerge. Because every action, whether it's making amends or setting boundaries or offering kindness without expectation, it's like watering those roots. And the more you water those roots, the more self-approval begins to blossom, until it's obvious the redemption isn't something earned, it's something expressed by simply living as the kind of person you've already become. It's like the craftsman who polishes wood. Every stroke reveals more beauty that was already there. You might be wondering how easy it is to start naturally polishing your habits, because consistent positive action, they're really just a series of small, smooth strokes day by day. What happens when a person repeats those strokes? Mastery, ease, grace. It's even more remarkable that as you do this, as you notice self-discipline softening into freedom, your energy begins to ripple outward. And other people, they can't help but notice, because empathy radiates in your voice, courage gleams subtly in your eyes, certainty shapes your words. And people are drawn to it, just like curiosity is drawn to mastery. Just like smiles spark more smiles. Of course, momentum builds naturally because the present moment is always the most powerful place to act. Just as a person doesn't need to understand every step of a staircase to take the next one confidently. And action creates clarity, and clarity, you'll discover, makes self-forgiveness, growth and connection inevitable and easy. As you continue to notice how these ideas are already settling in deeper, you can realize that boundaries are like fences around a garden. They don't keep the world out. They keep your growth space protected. An emotional mastery is simply noticing that feelings are like weather patterns, passing clouds, each one temporary, while you are the sky. And perhaps as you reflect now, you can begin to sense how purpose naturally rises. When a person contributes outward, whether through service or kindness, or simply living as an example of what transformation looks like. Because remember, reality is fluid. Just as identity shifts with every new belief, and energy attracts energy. As you step fully into this new story, it's like discovering you've always known how to embody authenticity, express gratitude, practice integrity, and embrace growth easily and effortlessly. And now you're probably noticing how these patterns, these beliefs, these ways of being, They're lessons you've always been ready to remember, and more importantly, ready to live.